During his first few seasons, I rated Patrice Motsepe as the best president in the history of CAF, not because he was loud and not because he was confrontational, but because he seemed to understand a simple but sacred truth that Africa should govern itself on its own terms. Under his leadership, CAF projected confidence and AFCON stood firm. Motsepe's leadership was not entirely bad. He brought stability, he improved governance, he cleaned up certain administrative messes, and that should be acknowledged. But his recent decisions have actually proved otherwise, that he's actually the worst president in the history of CAF. For decades, AFCON's calendar made sense for our climate, for our players, and for our realities. January football was not a mistake, it was a solution. It respected African weather, African infrastructure, and African conditions. The existing principle was correct. In fact, it was perfect for the continent. But then came the pressure. Pressure from FIFA, pressure from Europe, pressure from the West, and Motsepe bowed. He agreed to shift our calendar from January to June. He agreed to shift the AFCON from its traditional 2-year cycle to a 4-year format. He agreed, and not because Africa demanded it, not because African fans asked for it, not because African leagues needed it, but because Europe was uncomfortable. That moment marked a turning point. It was not a reform, it was surrender. AFCON was not failing, it was actually growing. It was asserting itself. And yet, instead of defending it, its custodian negotiated it away. Africa did not gain power from that compromise. It lost leverage because every time Africa adjusts itself to please the West, it sends a message that our institutions are negotiable and their comfort is not. Stripping Senegal of the AFCON title and officially declaring Morocco as champions almost 3 months after the tournament is a cherry on top of the darkest era of African football. There was no need to overturn the result of the final. CAF saw it fit to leave Morocco unpunished after their goalkeeper towels shenanigans, in which reserve goalkeepers were assaulted in full view of the spectators. It is quite clear that in all his weird decisions, Motsepe has consistently compromised black people and betrayed Africa. Moving the calendar, changing the cycle, and now stripping Senegal of the title they won fairly on the pitch. History will record something far more painful. It will remember Motsepe as the man who sacrificed AFCON to appease the West and North Africans who don't even consider themselves Africans. The man who chose global approval over continental pride. The man who mistook accommodation for progress. There was nothing broken about AFCON's identity. Nothing wrong with January. Nothing inferior about the 2-year format. The problem was never Africa. It was Europe's unwillingness to respect Africa as an equal. And instead of standing firm, Motsepe folded. Fact is, Africa doesn't need alignment to be legitimate. Africa doesn't need permission to exist. Africa doesn't need validation from European leagues to matter. AFCON isn't just a tournament. It's a statement, a declaration that Africa would not orbit Europe, that our football would not be scheduled around someone else's convenience. That statement has now been weakened. Leadership is not tested when applause is loud. It's tested when pressure is heavy. And on that defining issue, Motsepe chose compromise over conviction. Not only will history judge him fairly and honestly, but also harshly. Motsepe's tombstone will read, "Here lies the man who had a chance to protect Africa's crown, but chose to polish Europe's crown instead."